And now, Lord Starfish's epic tale of epic proportions. Kasumi's epic quest. A My Little Pony and Minecraft crossover. Chapter 1. The epic quest begins, :D.
Again, this might seem like an exceptionally random story with no common sense whatsoever, but bear with me here, this will all make sense in the end. Or, don't. Your choice, really.
The sun rose on another completely ordinary morning for young Kasumi. She got out of bed, got dressed, braided her hair, and almost fell into a magma pool because a hole in the ground leading into the Earth's core had opened in her floor overnight. She pulled a carpenter out of her bag that holds everything and asked him to fix it. She then went into the kitchen and had a completely ordinary breakfast consisting of 3 helpings of roasted ice cream and some coffee-flavored orange juice. Then she left the house to go to school. Her 2 best friends, Kiyoshi and Steve, were waiting for her outside. "Sup, guys?" she said. "Not much," Kiyoshi said. "My mom was wondering if you could spare a TV for us, though. Our old one exploded last week." "Sure thing," Kasumi said, and pulled a 50-inch 1080p TV out of her bag and gave it to Kiyoshi. "I found 5 diamonds yesterday," Steve said excitedly. "Really? That's awesome!" Kasumi said. "So what about you?" Steve asked. "Not much. Dad didn't come home yesterday, though, so I'm kind of wondering where he's been," Kasumi said. "Oh well, you know how he is. Comes and goes as he pleases. It's nothing too unusual." They continued chatting as they walked towards the school, until suddenly the entire population of the town came running straight over the 3 friends. This would normally have been a cause for alarm, as getting trampled by every man, woman, and child in an entire city might be somewhat lethal. But thankfully, Kasumi was able to pull some band-aids out of her bag and put one each on Kiyoshi, Steve, and herself, so they were completely fine. "What's all the commotion about?" she said as she saw the entire population of the city running into the town square. "Let's go check," Kiyoshi said. When they reached the town square, they saw that everyone was staring at the giant TV screen hanging on the town hall. There was a news report being shown. "Breaking news. We have just confirmed that our mayor has been kidnapped by an evil clan of books. The Book Clan has given the following demands," the news lady said, as Kasumi and her friends looked at each other in dread. "Oh no! The mayor's your dad, right?" Steve said. "Why, yes. Yes, he is. Why ever would you feel the need to ask that question? It's not like his status as the mayor has changed at all in the past 2 years," Kasumi responded. On the TV screen, the image changed to a video of the evil clan of books. The book leader spoke up and said, "Citizens of Boardville, we have your mayor, and if you want him back, you have to pass $100 zillion. The book then pointed to Kasumi's father, who was chained up against the wall. A citizen said, "You know that zillion is actually a number, right?" The book then flipped through its own pages till it reached a page containing a picture of a basilisk staring straight at the reader. It then shoved said page right up against the camera, and the citizen saw the picture and died. Because that is what happens if you look a basilisk in the eyes, boys and girls. The rest of the city were smart enough to look away, though. "So, as I was saying, hand over $100 zillion, or you will never see your mayor again." The broadcast then went back to the news studio. "Oh no, this is terrible. What are we going to do?" Steve said. "Even Kasumi's bag that holds everything can't possibly provide us with $100 zillion. "Yeah, there's a limit to how unreasonable you can be," Kiyoshi said. "At least if they'd asked for like $100 quadrillion or something, then we might have been able to solve this peacefully. But we can't give them a sum that doesn't exist." "Well, I see only one solution to this problem," Kasumi said, and pulled out a map that showed where the books were holding her father captive from her bag. "I'm gonna go rescue him." She then ran off on her own to rescue her dad. 2 minutes later, she decided that going it alone would be boring, so she pulled Kiyoshi and Steve out of her bag. Why am I not surprised? Kiyoshi said in a completely deadpan voice. You know, you could have just asked us to come along 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, I didn't think that far, Kasumi said. So, do either of you guys have any weapons?
Well, I have my bow, Kiyoshi said, and Kasumi pulled his bow out of her bag and gave it to him. And I have those diamonds I found yesterday. I guess I could craft them into a diamond sword, Steve said, and Kasumi pulled the 5 diamonds out of her bag.
Alright then. Now that we are all armed and ready to go, let's go save Dad!
Kasumi shouted and ran off again. And so it was that the 3 set off on their epic quest to rescue Kasumi's father, the mayor. On their journey, they would encounter many trials and tribulations. But with their brains, bravery, Kasumi's magic bag, Kiyoshi's bow, and Steve's blade of diamonds, and possibly some other things starting with B, they were sure they would be able to overcome them. The first trial they encountered on their first night, for Steve insisted that they take shelter for the night lest they be blown up by creepers. But all the carpenters Kasumi had pulled out of her bag were either asleep, exhausted from a long day's work, or didn't speak English, and a few of them were ponies. So clearly building shelter would not be an option.
So, what else can we do to avoid those creepers? Kasumi asked.
Well, they're deathly afraid of cats, Steve helpfully informed her.
Well, why didn't you say so sooner?
Kasumi said, and pulled a cat out of the bag. And so they were safe from creepers, and the first trial was overcome. Incidentally, she named the cat Cat. She's not all that creative, I'm afraid. Kasumi, Kiyoshi, Steve, and Kat's epic quest continued with little incident for the next 3 days, until they stumbled upon a mountain with a gate, guarded by an adorable little white rabbit. What an adorable little bunny, Steve said.
Don't get too close! That's the killer rabbit! It might look adorable, but it is a bloodthirsty beast!
Kasumi said, applying her flawless logic. Trademark. Cat boasted, and walked over to the killer rabbit regardless, and was promptly annihilated by the rabbit's laser breath. Also, it was night, so then they were immediately surrounded by 15 creepers. That's a nice bag that holds everything you got there. Be a shame if something were to happen to it, one of the creepers said menacingly to Kasumi, who proceeded to pull out a rubber band from her bag, because that was her weapon of choice.
Alright, there's nothing else for it now. We have to fight off both the creepers and the killer rabbit,
she declared, and shot her rubber band at one of the creepers. The creeper then exploded violently, leaving behind a mushroom cloud. Kiyoshi drew an arrow from his quiver and started firing at the creepers as well, but the ones he hit died in a much less spectacular fashion. Hey, how come my creepers die in a much less spectacular fashion? He said angrily.
Because rubber bands are way more effective than arrows when it comes to creeper fighting. Duh,
Kasumi said, applying her flawless logic. Trademark. Once again. Steve also killed some creepers with his diamond sword, but while cutting down one, he failed to notice that there was a second creeper standing behind it. The creeper ignited and blew Steve up. Steve? No! Kiyoshi screamed.
Oh, don't worry.
He'll just respawn back in his bed, Kasumi said with even more flawless logic. Trademark.
He'll soon be back.
And so they continued shooting the creepers until there were none left, and then they turned their attention to the killer rabbit. Kasumi fired a rubber band at it, but to her horror, it did nothing.
Damn it! The killer rabbit is immune to my rubber bands! I should have known! Only the holy hand grenade can kill the killer rabbit!
She said, once again applying her flawless logic. Trademark. Uh-huh, Kiyoshi said, and shot the killer rabbit with an arrow, proving Kasumi's flawless logic, trademark, right. The rabbit did not die.
Told you so,
Kasumi said, and pulled the holy hand grenade out of her bag, removing the holy pin and counting to 3 before throwing it at the killer rabbit and blowing it to bits in God's mercy.
The battle is won!
But at great cost, she said gravely. Yeah, poor Steve, Kiyoshi said.
What, Steve? Didn't I tell you he'd just respawn? Actually, it's a pain waiting for him to come back, so...
Kasumi said and pulled Steve out of her bag again. I figured you'd do that, Steve said.
But no! I mean that we lost Cat!
Kasumi said, and started sobbing over the loss of her dear friend.
Never has there been a more loyal companion. His or her name shall go down in legend, and I shall raise a memorial for him or her right here,
she continued, and pulled a grand memorial with a life-size statue of Cat out of her bag. Steve put a flower bouquet in front of the statue before praying that Cat's soul find peace in the afterlife. Kiyoshi didn't care because, seriously, they'd only known Cat for 3 days. Also, it bit him at one time, which he was still bitter about.
However, we must press onwards, despite the loss of our dear companion. It is what Cat would have wanted us to do,
Kasumi said, and opened the gate into the mountain, with no idea of what awaited them within.